Chapter 1. My Two Fathers. My name is Robert, and when I was a young boy growing up in Hawaii, I had two dads. This sounds strange, I know, but it's true. One was my real father, and the other was my best friend Mike's father. Having two dads gave me two very different ways of looking at the world, especially when it came to money. My real dad was a very smart man. He had gone to big, famous schools and had lots of degrees. He was the head of education for the whole state of Hawaii. He was a great man and a wonderful father. I loved him very much, but he had a problem with money. He earned a good salary, but he was always worried about bills. He believed that the secret to a good life was to go to school, get good grades, and find a safe job with a good company. I call him my poor dad. He wasn't poor because he had no money. He was poor in his way of thinking about it. A common thing he would say at home was, "I can't afford that." It was a statement, an end to the conversation. My other dad was Mike's dad. He was a different kind of man. He had never finished the 8th grade. He wasn't book smart like my dad, but he was street smart. He was starting his own businesses and learning how the world of money really worked. He was a man who was always asking questions and trying new things. When he wanted something he couldn't buy, he would never say, "I can't afford that." Instead, he would rub his chin and ask himself, "How can I afford that?" It was a question, a puzzle that made his brain work. I call him my rich dad. When I was young, he wasn't super rich yet, but his mind was the mind of a rich person. He was building his future, not just working for a paycheck. Living with these two different ideas was very confusing. At home, my poor dad would say things like, "The love of money is the root of all evil." At Mike's house, his rich dad would say, "The lack of money is the root of all evil." My poor dad told me to study hard so I could find a good company to work for. My rich dad told me to study hard so I could find a good company to buy. My poor dad believed our house was our biggest investment, our most valuable thing. My rich dad believed that our house was a liability, something that took money from us. Both men were good, both men worked very hard, both men wanted the best for me, but their advice was like night and day. As a 9-year-old boy, I had to choose who to listen to. I decided that since my own dad, the school expert, wasn't rich, maybe I should learn about money from the other dad. I decided to learn from my rich dad. That choice changed my life forever. Chapter 2. The question that started it all. It all began because I wanted something I couldn't have. I went to a school where many of the kids' parents were rich. They were doctors or business owners. These kids had all the new toys. They had new baseball gloves and shiny new bicycles. After school, they would go to the beach and their parents would take them on vacations. My best friend Mike and I were not like them. We were the poor kids. We didn't have fancy things. We couldn't join our friends when they did expensive things. We felt left out. It didn't feel fair. One day, I had enough. I went to my poor dad while he was reading the newspaper. "Dad," I asked, my voice a little shaky, "can you teach me how to get rich?" He put down his paper and looked at me with a kind but sad smile. "Son," he said, "I wish I could. If I knew how to get rich, I wouldn't have this job. I know how to get a good education and be a good worker. That's what I can teach you." He thought for a moment. "But I have an idea. Why don't you ask Mike's dad? He doesn't have a big education, but he seems to be doing very well with his businesses. Maybe you should talk to him." So, the next Saturday, Mike and I walked over to one of his dad's small offices. It was a little room behind one of his convenience stores. We were very nervous. Mike's dad was a busy, serious man. We knocked on the door. "Come on," a deep voice said. We stepped inside. Rich Dad was sitting at a big, messy desk. He looked up at us. "Well, what can I do for you two?" Mike spoke up first. "Dad, my friend Robert and I have a question. We want to learn how to get rich. Can you teach us?" Rich Dad leaned back in his chair, which squeaked loudly. He looked at us for a long time without saying anything. We started to feel uncomfortable. Finally, a small smile appeared on his face. "So, you don't want to just play baseball? You want to learn how to make money?" he asked. "Yes, sir," we both said, nodding our heads. "Okay," he said, "I'll teach you. But there's a condition. I won't teach you in a classroom. I won't give you a lecture. You will learn by doing. You will work for me." We looked at each other, surprised. This wasn't what we expected. "I will pay you," he continued, 10 cents an hour. 10 cents an hour? Even for a kid back then, that was almost nothing. It felt like an insult. I was about to say something, but then Rich Dad held up his hand. "And one more thing," he said, his voice firm. You must decide right now, yes or no. If you can't make a decision quickly, you'll never learn how to make money. Opportunities in life come and go very fast. You have to be ready to grab them. So, what is it? Mike and I had a quick, silent conversation with our eyes. It was a strange offer, but it was the only offer we had. It was a chance to learn the secret. Okay, I said. We'll do it. Good, Rich Dad said. Be at my convenience store on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. You'll work for 3 hours. Chapter 3. The 10-cent Trap. That Saturday, Mike and I showed up right on time. A woman named Mrs. Martin was the manager. She smiled at us and then pointed to a corner of the store filled with shelves. The shelves were packed with canned goods, beans, soup, tuna, fish, corn. Your job, she said, handing us each a feather duster, is to dust every single one of these cans. Start at the top, take the can off the shelf, wipe it down, and put it back. And that's what we did. For 3 hours, we dusted cans. It was the most boring job in the world. Outside, we could hear other kids laughing and playing, but we were stuck inside, dusting can after can. At the end of our 3 hours, Mrs. Martin gave each of us 30 cents. I held the 3 dimes in my hand. It felt like nothing. The next Saturday was the same. And the Saturday after that, we dusted cans, got our 30 cents, and went home. Rich Dad never came to see us. He never taught us a single thing. I started to get angry. I felt used. This wasn't a lesson. This was just cheap labor. He was taking advantage of us. By the 4th Saturday, I was done. As we finished our work, I turned to Mike and said, I quit. This is a rip-off. Your dad is a greedy man. He promised to teach us, but he's done nothing. I'm wasting my Saturdays for this. Mike didn't look surprised. He actually started to smile. I was wondering when you would get angry, he said. My dad said this would happen. He told me that when you were ready to quit, that's when the lesson would really start. He said to bring you to see him. I was even angrier now, but also curious. What did he mean the lesson would start now? We walked over to Rich Dad's office. I was ready to tell him exactly what I thought of him and his stupid job. Chapter 4. The Angry Showdown. When I got home that day, I told my poor dad what happened. He was very upset. He can't do that, my dad said. That's against the law. You are worth more than 10 cents an hour. You go back there and you demand a raise. Tell him you want at least 25 cents an hour. If he says no, you walk away. You have to stand up for yourself. With my poor dad's words in my head, I felt strong. I went to see Rich Dad, ready for a fight. When we got to his office, he made us wait for almost an hour. This just made me more furious. Finally, he called us in. I didn't waste any time. You broke your promise, I said loudly. You said you would teach us, but all you did was make us work like slaves. You're greedy and you don't care about people. Rich Dad listened calmly. He let me say everything I wanted to say. When I was finished, breathing hard, he looked at me and said something that stopped me cold. Not bad, he said. In just 1 month, you sound just like most of the people who work for me. I didn't know what to say. So, he continued, you think teaching is just talking? Giving a lecture? That's how your father teaches in school. But life doesn't teach that way. Life is the best teacher. And life doesn't talk. It just pushes you around. He stood up and walked around his desk. Life pushes everyone. Some people give up, others fight back, a few learn the lesson and move on. I wanted you to feel that push. I wanted you to get angry at me. I wanted you to feel what it's like to work hard for very little money. Because that's how millions of people feel every single day. He explained that most people are trapped in a pattern. He called it the rat race. It works like this, he said. Fear makes you get a job. You're afraid you won't have enough money to pay your bills. Then, once you get your paycheck, another feeling takes over. Desire. You think of all the nice things you can buy. A new TV, new clothes, a nice dinner. So you spend your money. He said this creates a cycle. Get up, go to work, pay bills. Get up, go to work, pay bills. Even if you get a raise, you just spend more. You are like a hamster, running in a wheel, running faster and faster, but never actually going anywhere. The lesson, he said, looking me straight in the eye, is this. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. You got angry and you wanted to ask for more money. That's what everyone does. But more money doesn't solve the problem. You have to learn how to get out of the trap altogether. My mind was spinning. I had never heard anyone talk like this before. So now, the next lesson begins, Rich Dad said with a small smile. You will continue to work at the store on Saturdays, but from now on, I am not going to pay you anything. What? I came here to demand a raise, and now he was telling me to work for free? It sounded crazy, but something inside me knew this was important. I was confused, but I was also excited. I looked at Mike, and he nodded. We agreed. We would work for free. Chapter 5. Seeing with New Eyes. For the next 3 weeks, Mike and I worked at the store for no pay at all. It was a very strange feeling. Because we weren't thinking about our 10 cent an hour wage, our minds started to work differently. We weren't just dusting cans anymore. We were looking around. We were thinking, what was the lesson? There had to be a way to make money here. An opportunity. One Saturday, as we were working, I saw Mrs. Martin doing something interesting. She had a stack of comic books. These were the comics that hadn't sold. She tore the top half of the front cover off each one. She put the covers in a box and threw the rest of the comic book into a big garbage bin. What are you doing, Mrs. Martin? I asked. Oh, this? She said. The comic book company gives us our money back for the ones we don't sell. We just have to send them the covers as proof. The rest is just trash. Trash? I looked at the big bin full of perfectly good comic books. My eyes went wide. I looked over at Mike. He was staring at the bin too. A huge light bulb went on in both of our heads at the same time. An opportunity. It had been right in front of us the whole time, but we couldn't see it because we were too busy thinking about our small paycheck. Mrs. Martin? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Since you're just going to throw them away, can we have them? She shrugged. Sure, kids, I don't care. Just take them out of here. We felt like we had discovered a gold mine. We took all the comic books to Mike's house. His family had an empty room in the basement. We cleaned it up. We found some old wooden planks and made shelves. We spent the whole afternoon organizing the hundreds of comic books. Then we made a sign and put it outside the basement door. It said, "The Comic Book Library. Come in and read. Admission, 10 cents. Read as many as you want for 2 hours." Our business was a huge success. All the kids in the neighborhood loved it. They could pay just 1 dime and read 10 or 15 comics instead of buying only one for the same price. Our little library was packed every afternoon. We even hired Mike's little sister to be the librarian. We paid her $1 a week to run the library. This was the most important part. The library was making money for us even when we weren't there. We could be out playing baseball and our business was still earning us money. We were earning about $9.5 a week, which was a lot of money for 2 9-year-old boys. But it wasn't about the amount of money. It was about what we had learned. We had learned how to make money work for us. We had escaped the trap of working for money. Chapter 6. The Secret Rule of the Rich. After a few months, our comic book library had to close down. But that was okay. We had learned the lesson. Now it was time for Rich Dad to teach us the ideas behind what we did. He sat us down one Saturday morning. "Boys," he said, "you have felt the difference between working for money and having money work for you. Now you need to learn the rule that makes it all possible. It's the most important rule of all." He took out a piece of paper and a pen. "To be rich," he said, "you must know the difference between an asset and a liability." He wrote the 2 words on the paper. "The definitions are very simple," he said. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. He looked at us to make sure we were listening. That's it. That's the whole game. Rich people spend their lives buying assets. Poor people and the middle class spend their lives buying liabilities, but they often think they are buying assets. I was confused. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Well," he said, "let's take your poor dad, Robert. What does he say is his biggest investment?" "Our house," I said immediately. "Exactly," Rich Dad said, "and almost everyone believes that. But is a house an asset or a liability?" "An asset?" I guessed. "Let's use the definition," he said patiently. "Does your house put money in your pocket every month?" "No," I said. "Does it take money out of your pocket every month?" I thought about it. "Yes," I said. "We have to pay the mortgage to the bank. We have to pay property taxes. We have to pay for repairs if something breaks." "Exactly," Rich Dad said. "Your house takes money out of your pocket every single month. So, according to the rule, is it an asset or a liability?" "A liability," I said slowly. My mind was blown. Now, he said, if you owned a second house and you rented it to someone and they paid you rent every month and that rent was more than your costs, would that house be an asset or a liability? An asset, Mike and I said together, because it would be putting money in our pockets. You got it, Rich Dad smiled. It's not about the thing itself, it's about how it works. Rich people buy things that put money in their pockets. They buy assets. He made a list for us. Assets. Businesses that you own but don't have to work in, like our comic book library. Stocks in companies. Rental properties. Anything else that generates money for you. Liabilities. Your house mortgage. Car payments. Credit card debt. Student loans. The main reason people struggle with money their whole lives, he said, is because they are constantly buying liabilities. They get a raise, so they buy a bigger house or a fancier car. That means they have bigger bills. So they have to work even harder. They get stuck in the rat race and they don't even know why. Chapter 7. The Story of Money. To help us understand even better, Rich Dad drew pictures of how money moves for different kinds of people. He called it cash flow. First, he drew the picture for a poor person. A poor person has a job, he said, drawing a box for Job. Money comes in from the job. He drew an arrow from Job to a box called income. Then, the money goes right back out to pay for bills. He drew another arrow from income to a box called expenses, things like rent, food, and bus fare. The money comes in and it goes right out. There is nothing left. Next, he drew the picture for a middle class person. A middle class person has a better job and a bigger salary, he said. Money comes in from their job to their income box. But what do they do with it? They buy liabilities. He drew a big box for liabilities. They buy a house, they buy a car, they use credit cards. All of these things create more bills. He drew arrows from the liabilities box to the expenses box. So now their expenses are much higher. Their mortgage payment, their car payment, their credit card payments, all their income goes to pay for their high expenses, which are caused by their liabilities. They work hard, but they are stuck. Finally, he drew the picture for a rich person. A rich person does something completely different, he said, his voice getting excited. They use their income to buy assets. He drew a big box for assets. They buy things like rental properties or stocks or small businesses. And what do assets do? They put money in your pocket, we shouted. Exactly, he said, drawing an arrow from the assets box to the income box. Their assets generate more income for them. Their money makes more money. They use this extra income from their assets to pay for their expenses. And if they want to buy a luxury, like a big house or a fancy car, they don't use their own work money. They buy another asset first and let that new asset pay for the luxury. Their assets buy their liabilities. Do you see the difference? We did. It was so simple, yet so powerful. The goal wasn't just to make more money at a job. The goal was to buy and build your assets box until the money it produced was enough to pay for your whole life. That, he told us, is what financial freedom really is. Chapter 8. The Giants That Block the Path. Knowing these rules is the first step, Rich Dad told us a few weeks later. But many people know the rules and still don't become rich. That's because there are 5 big giants that stand in their way. These giants are not outside of you, they are inside your head. The first giant is fear. Everyone is afraid of losing money, he said. I am. Even very rich people are. But the difference is how you handle fear. A poor person is so afraid of losing $1 that they never take a risk. They keep their money in a savings account where it barely grows. They play not to lose. Rich people are also afraid, but they know that sometimes you have to risk losing to have a chance of winning big. They see failure as a chance to learn. I've lost money on bad deals before, but each time I lost, I learned a lesson that made me smarter for the next time. The second giant is doubt. This is that little voice in your head, or the voice of your friends, that says it won't work. When you have a good idea, a person with doubt will tell you all the reasons it will fail. They live in a world of what if? What if the market crashes? What if it's too hard? This doubt freezes them. They never even try. You have to learn to ignore that voice and believe in yourself. The third giant is laziness. When I say laziness, Rich Dad explained, I don't mean sitting on the couch watching TV all day. I mean the laziness of being too busy. I know people who work 12 hours a day at their job. They come home tired. They are very busy, but they use their business as an excuse to be lazy about their own money. They are too busy to read a book about investing. They are too busy to look for a good deal. They work hard for their boss, but they are lazy about working for themselves and their own future. The fourth giant is bad habits. Your life is a reflection of your habits, he said. Most people have a bad money habit. They get their paycheck and the first thing they do is pay all their bills. They pay the government, their landlord, their credit card company. They pay everyone else first. If there's anything left over, they save it. The problem is, there's usually nothing left. Rich people have a good money habit. They pay themselves first. When they get money, the very first person they pay is themselves. They put a part of that money into their asset column. They buy a stock or put it towards a rental property before they pay their bills. This might sound scary. What about the bills? Well, the pressure of having bills to pay forces them to be creative and find other ways to make more money. It's a habit that forces them to build their wealth. The fifth and final giant is arrogance. Arrogance is just ego and ignorance combined, he said. It's the person who doesn't know anything about money but acts like they do. They are too proud to admit they don't understand something. If you don't know something, you can either admit it and learn about it, or you can pretend you know and stay ignorant. What I know makes me money. What I don't know can lose me a lot of money. The world of money is always changing. You have to be humble enough to know that there's always more to learn. Chapter 9, The Final Choice. As I grew from a boy into a man, the lessons from my two fathers became clearer and clearer. I saw their lives go down two very different roads. My poor dad worked hard his whole life. He was a great man who helped a lot of people through his work in education. But he always struggled with money. He followed the rules that most people follow: go to school, get a good job, and work for a paycheck. When he passed away, he had very little money to leave behind. My rich dad also worked hard, but he worked hard at a different thing. He worked hard at building his asset column. He made mistakes and lost money, but he learned from them and kept going. His businesses grew, his rental properties multiplied, his investments paid off, he became one of the richest men in Hawaii, he became financially free, able to do what he wanted with his time. He left behind an empire for his family. The story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the story of a choice. We all have this choice. We can choose to follow the advice of the poor dad, the safe path of working for money. Or we can choose to follow the advice of the rich dad, the path of learning how to make money work for us. Being rich isn't about being lucky or having a high-paying job. It's about understanding how money works. It's about building your asset column one small piece at a time. It's about overcoming the giants of fear and doubt that live inside your head. Your greatest asset is not your house or your car. Your greatest asset is your mind. If you invest in learning about money, you can build a life of freedom and choice. The lessons are simple. The path is clear. The choice is yours.